had been looking forward to today's conversation for two reasons. First, if you have ever worked on a construction project and had a hard time searching for and specifying building products, you will be relieved to know that somebody out there is trying to ease the workflow and make your life easier. But the second reason is that, as architects, we seldom see other architects branch out into the business world, let alone start a company in grad school. There seems to be this unspoken code about how if you've studied design, you need to practice it. Because what are all those sleepless nights worth if you're not going to deploy your design skills? In a nutshell, this episode is about technology, innovation, and choosing a radical career path. So today, I'm in conversation with Vardhan Mehta, an architect, urban designer, and the co-founder of Acelab with Dries Carmeliet. They have founded Acelab, the world's first vertically integrated platform where architects can get to know their building products. My name is Vaishnavi Shukla, and this is Architecture Off Center, a podcast where we highlight unconventional design practices and research projects that reflect the emerging discourses within the design discipline and beyond. Architecture Off Center features conversations with some exceptionally creative individuals who have extrapolated the traditional fields of architecture, planning, landscape, and urban design. Should we start?
Let's start.
You're here today, and Dries is not, but let's kind of rewind everything a little bit. So both of you kind of go to different schools, right? So you went to the GSD, you went to Harvard, and Dries went to MIT, but you both ended up kind of starting a company together. So tell me a little bit about your own background, but also the famous/infamous story of how co-founders meet each other and, how they think about this company when they're drunk, whatever. How did you guys meet, and how did the idea of getting into the startup world come about for both of you?
So I'll backtrack a little bit and I'll actually go to my childhood. I'm from a small town in central India, Indore, and growing up, spent a lot of time in my dad's office. And he had his startup office home, which was his architecture firm. And I used to spend a lot of time there after school, usually once I was, I think, 10 or 12. And I remember his architecture office very vividly because he had these 3 rooms. That's it. So he had one small drafting room where him and his team would just make drawings all day long. He had a meeting room where he would meet with clients, have presentations. And then the third room was this weird, I first thought it was a storage room, but I later found out that they call this a material library. And so it's filled with these giant dossiers and folders full of brochures from manufacturers from years and years ago. I always, at that age also, I found it very weird that when they were working with such limited real estate, they still decided to dedicate this entire room to this library space. But then it also kind of made sense because I would see him and his team just running back and forth all day long between the drafting room and the library where they were trying to find the best products to use for their projects. And I have this one very strange memory from when I was, I think, 12 years old, where I saw him just scream at this floor tile manufacturer on the phone. He was holding the brochure from that manufacturer in one hand, and he was screaming on the phone with him, essentially saying that the order that I placed was based on a brochure, but the one that reached the construction site is something totally different.
What you see versus what you get.
Exactly. And in that moment, I felt overwhelmed with the amount of hard work and frustration that's involved in being an architect. But still, I loved it. I really liked the excitement and energy I saw in his office and just in his life. And I wanted the same. So I told my dad that I also want to become an architect. And my dad said, that's great. But in that case, you should actually go to the US. and learn about the innovative and technologically driven workflows of practice. Because things in India are just too old fashioned or too slow, and you won't learn as much. So I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So then I came to Pratt Institute in New York in 2013 for my bachelor's. And I had a great time at Pratt. Like, the thing that was the most exciting for me was actually organizing teams with my friends at the school who were also aspiring to become architects and to enter international design competitions. And I used to love just organizing these teams and competing. And I actually led 3 teams, which won competitions in France, Germany, and China. And then with all of this excitement about practicing architecture, I graduated and started working at one of the best firms in the US, based out of New York. And things were great. Like, I was working on design projects like the new US Embassy in New Delhi for the State Department. I was also working for institutional projects for MIT and Yale. And everything was going fine until this one day in 2018. My PM had asked me to go to the back of the office to the material library, which was massive. And he asked me to find this one brochure for this one stone that a manufacturer had handed to the office years ago. And I spent half of my day trying to find that one brochure from that big material library. And in that moment, I felt cheated because I was told that you go to the US to learn the more innovative and technologically driven ways of practicing, but that was simply not the case. There were still these redundancies in the workflows that even the best architecture firms were using in 2018. And I found that very frustrating. But also, I felt like 12 years ago, I had the same recollection with my dad on the phone arguing with the floor tile manufacturer. How have things just not changed anywhere in the world in the last 12 years? And so with that, I started to feel like the impact I was able to create through architecture was severely limited due to the outdated workflows in the industry. And then soon after that, I applied for grad school. I was accepted at Harvard and MIT, and I was attending open houses at both the schools with all the accepted students into that program. And that's where I met Dries. He came in as a student after 5 years in practice. He also came from a small town, Leuven in Belgium. And I remember the first night we met, we were just like talking about our work lives to understand like the things that were radically different and the things that were the same. And everything about the way we practice was completely different, except for this frustration, which was exactly the same. And that was like this aha moment of how can it be that architects around the world in India, Belgium, and New York are struggling with the same exact thing across different times in the past, in the recent past, I should say. And so that's where Dries and I started working on this idea of Acelab. It really actually started as a way to think of how can architects be able to do more meaningful work so that we're spending our time doing things that we actually go to school for, designing beautiful buildings as opposed to spending time on administrative work or writing Word documents or compiling together product data inspections.
You've said Acelab now, so why don't you tell us about Acelab and what is the big idea?
So Acelab is the world's first vertically integrated building products platform to search, select, and specify building products. The problem in this industry for a very long time has been due to the sheer size and the complexity of the construction and architecture industry, there has been no standardization of product data. So for an architect to be able to communicate with a manufacturer or a distributor or a dealer installer, it's a big mess. You usually have to go to You have to attend trade shows. You have to invite manufacturers for lunch and learns. You look at magazine ads. You aimlessly search on websites. You make countless phone calls. But even after all of that, you don't really have all the information you need in your hands to be able to make an informed decision about which products end up in your project. And so that's what we're doing with Acelab. We're trying to reduce the 2 to 3 hours an architect has to spend right now in order to find the 2 or 3 very good options for products to include in a building, but reducing that to a few minutes.
Everything you said sounds like a reality I'm living in right now, because I graduated last year and then I moved back to India, and I like to call myself a practice and not a freelancer. I'm a one-person office at the moment, but I'm working on, let's say, 4 projects right now, right? Different scales, different industries. So there's a project I'm doing in the healthcare space, and there's one that's an office, and 2 kind of separately architecture, weekend houses, whatever. But I'm the one person who is doing the working drawings, trying to coordinate with different agencies on site, but also look for different products and, go through the whole thing that you only spend half a day in. I spend days at that. And I spend a lot of time Googling for products because, say for example, you want a door manufacturer, right? So this healthcare project I'm doing just want a door that has whatever antibacterial coating and blah, 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 and just everything that meets the NABH guidelines. And so I Google and then I reach out to the person, and then the person sends me a brochure on WhatsApp, not even on mail. So I have to airdrop it to my MacBook and then I have to call him on site. And so the whole gamut, okay? And then once I find a product I want to specify in my working drawings, I Google again, and then, start hunting for the brochures, website, goes on and on and on till the thing's actually finalized and the quotation's done. So you can imagine, as a one-person operation, this gets very tedious for me. And I'm sure a lot of architects, project managers, and interns face the same problem on a day-to-day basis. So what Acelab is trying to do is so simple and so essential and so fundamental to the design and construction industry. Why do you think no one has done this before? I know the construction industry is notoriously resistant to technological changes, especially in India, where we're still fighting about whether we make the drawings in the imperial or metric system. So it starts right from there. But there has to be something more than that, right? Why has nobody done this?
Before answering that, I'll actually add something to your frustrations.
Please do.
I firmly believe that an architect's role is to not know everything about everything, but to know something about everything. That's our strength, right? But for junior architects, I felt this to the core, working in New York back in 2018. As a junior architect, you just don't know enough.
Oh, yeah.
And you also don't really have any place online where you can just find the information you need right in that moment to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether that is about very technical attributes or about sustainability, we're just not enough. We sometimes just don't have enough experience to be able to know everything about everything.
Even in terms of economics, right? In terms of pricing also. I remember I interned in Sri Lanka and there was this one particular stretch ceiling product that we were looking for, an auditorium. And they didn't have dealers for that in Sri Lanka. But I spent so much time just figuring out how it works. And once we found somebody who do it just in terms of cost, trying to get the right products that fit the budget score.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just Google for manufacturers, you go on their websites, that's not really the best way to be able to understand how to make an informed decision, since all of their 5-star reviews on the website are clearly biased towards them being able to sell more through you. And so in this case, having a tool which has unbiased and transparent information where you're able to compare, let's say, 3 windows, apples to apples, exactly the way you would do on Amazon if you're trying to find a laptop, where you're looking at the same technical attributes for all 3 window manufacturers and their products lines side by side, and then you can make a decision based on data not instincts or intuition.
Right.
So that I think is really important. And then now to answer your question about why has no one done this before. Well, the problem is there have been people who've tried to do this before. In fact, there's a big graveyard of companies that have tried to create a solution for this problem. But the problem is it always came from an angle of media, not from the angle of product. And so by that I mean, Acelab's secret sauce is that we spent a year doing our homework and creating database structures for the first time, which attempt to standardize how a window is experienced or how its information is relayed to an architect, an interior designer, a developer, and so on. Essentially, anyone on the demand side of building products. And so far, like the big problem that exists in the industry is that there isn't a language where a manufacturer or a distributor or a dealer installer is able to communicate with an architect or an interior designer or a developer. And so that's what we've really focused on. And we've built these database structures which help a manufacturer relay the absolute accurate information about their products to an architect in a very efficient way.
So while you're talking about all of this, I'm almost thinking about, the audience that you have. It's like would you say it's a B2B marketplace? What is it? B2C? Is it?
I would say it's a B2B information marketplace. So we don't sell anything. All we do is
Aggregate information.
We aggregate information, and then we influence the role of building products and how architects experience building products and how they're found through a platform. And on the platform, we've also built back office functionality for both architects and for manufacturers. So for architects, for example, finding the right product is just the first step in the pipeline, right? Because after that, you have to actually fill out a spec sheet where you note all the details about that product and how it should be used on site or how it should be assembled or how it should be installed. And since we work with highly structured, highly standardized information, we're also able to automate the documentation step. And so through Acelab, an architect can actually make the selections for a building product, save them into something like a shopping cart or a digital project library. And then from there, they can actually share that with everybody, including the people on their internal team, the client, the contractor, etc. And also automate the documentation as the project flows further downstream.
So after all the shop talk, I want to carve some time for some real talk. Now, you and Dries are both technically students today because you haven't graduated. But you both started Acelab while you were still enrolled in a semester with a full course load. And I think everybody who's listening probably knows how stressful architecture school can get. So you guys started Acelab when you were just starting grad school. Plus, with the option studios sucking out all the living energy out of you, and with the seminars that have so many readings that is impossible to get through them, with all of this going on in your academic life, what was it like to be an entrepreneur? Did it ever take a toll on your mental, physical, social well-being?
That's a great question. And like reflecting back on both our experiences at Harvard and MIT, I think it's fair to say that neither of us could have expected that the 2 years in grad school would go like the way they did. And so by that I mean, at a certain time, our days looked like this. We would be in studio reviews during the afternoons. We would have seminar courses in the evenings, and then Dries would, or I would, like, one of us would come essentially to the other with a 6-pack of beer, and we would just work on our pitch deck, our business plan for like hours into the night. So at that point, I would say like we were living as architects by the day and entrepreneurs by the night, and it was amazing. Like it felt so good. Like the prime reason I think it felt so good was we had both felt this frustration firsthand, and we knew that we're doing something about it. We're not waiting for MBAs from the business school at either of the two schools to come into our industry, see that it's a very big opportunity, and try to create a half-assed solution. We were actually doing something about it.
Mm.
So that felt really nice. And I think the support that we got along the way, like we just met the most amazing people as mentors through the two schools. Like we did all of these incubator programs at Harvard Innovation Lab, MIT, DesignX, and that just added, I think, like some kind of order to all this raw energy that the two of us had, and how willing we were to just drive a solution that actually makes a difference in the lives of architects.
So, for anyone who is listening right now, anyone who is studying architecture and wants to start their own venture, anyone who has been told that architecture is a noble design profession and that talking about business is bad or is frowned upon in the architecture circles, how can they switch gears and carve a different career path for themselves like you do? Because usually what happens is, especially if you're right out of undergrad, you tend to go, or if you want to branch out of architecture, that is, you tend to go into all the allied design fields. Like you would probably take up photography, you would go into interior design, you would go into furniture design, you would go into product design, but you'd rarely, I'm trying to think of any cases that I know of who have completely switched gears and done something else. But what would be your advice for, advice is the wrong word, what would you say to somebody who's wanting to get into the startup space right out of architecture school?
Well, I wouldn't be comfortable offering advice of any kind since we're also doing this for the first time. We're also from a non-technical, non-business background, and we're still early stage. And we're just experimenting and trying things out as a way of learning through them. But I will say two things. Firstly, there's two types of people that I've experienced in this profession. And actually, to backtrack, the problem with our profession now is that over the years, we've just relinquished all agency. And so at this point, it's a borderline service-based industry where all we get paid for is our instruments of service. But some of the smartest people I know to date in my life are architects. And there should not be a cost attached to be able to do the type of work we do, where we have to make a sacrifice for it. And so the two types of people I've noticed in this profession so far in my life who are totally fine with the way things are. First, there's the status quo, or the people who are totally happy with the way things are right now, since it just helps them stay at the place where they are in their professional life. The second is people who are just complacent, who know that something's wrong in the system, but they just live with it.
Yeah.
And I would say that for any architecture student or architect out there, if you've experienced frustration and if you have the drive to do something about it, then just start doing it.
Yeah.
Like sooner than later, you will find people who like you, trust you, and respect you, and who will take a chance on it. Like from the, I think, 100 users we have so far, like 100 architecture and manufacturing firms, I would say 90% of them are working with us only because they decided to take a chance on us.
Yeah.
Like they saw that we had this excitement and really this like willpower to do something that changes lives, and they wanted to join us in that journey.
But that's such a nice thing to say, right? And that applies to anybody wanting to do anything in life. Is to say, if you're driven enough and if you put in the hard work, I think that's very important. If you and Dries had just been sitting with that 6-pack of beer and not doing anything, then you probably wouldn't have Acelab. So it's also putting in the hard work, but also having that drive and faith in what you're doing, right?
The only thing I'll add to that really quickly is having mentors is so important. I remember just about the time that Dries and I started working on Acelab, I met this lady, Emily Fairbairn, and she's been our guiding light or North Star from that day on. She essentially showed us that apart from the technical aspects of everything that we're doing, the most important thing is why. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Why is Acelab important in our lives? And that question is just so important to be able to answer that. I remember I had to answer that to her 5 times before I hit the nail on the head. So I started with, yeah, the problem is in architecture right now, you have to spend all of this time. She was like, no, you start over. Why are you doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's actually a very good exercise. I kept going in again and again, and I remember at one point, I just said that, like, I felt like up till that time in my life, I was not able to do meaningful work through architecture. And I had this like deep like need to be able to do meaningful work through architecture or for architecture. And so that's what's, in my opinion, the most important thing, like identifying the why of like, why do you want to do that thing? Why is that so important? Why you and not someone else? Do you have an unfair advantage in that?
Oh my God, I'm gonna think about everything I'm doing right now because the leadership program that both of us were a part of was founded on and thrived on this question of why do you do what you do? You know, why do we do what we do? But I don't know, I will admit some days I just wake up and I have absolutely no sense of purpose. And some days I'm very driven and I get stuff done. But I think that's a very nice thing to say. But so you and Dries are both graduating in a week? Oh,
Yes.
actually a week! Almost a week and a
Actually,
half.
a week, yes. Dries is like the reason why he's not here right now is he's working very hard to complete his thesis for grad school. And so that to me is like the true example of how hardworking my co-founder is, where he spends his whole day on his lab, but still is doing like a full form thesis at a really good architecture school.
Yeah, we miss you, Dries, but both of you are graduating in a week and taking a full-fledged plunge into Acelab, doing it without any readings and any studio reviews. So what's next for the both of you in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, and what's next for Acelab?
So we just closed a seed investment round.
You did, since we last
Yes, we
spoke.
did.
Well,
Yes, we did.
congratulations. I'm so happy.
Thank you. And so now, like in the last year, we had very limited resources and we were just very, very scrappy and we bootstrapped everything that we could. Now, with more resources, our plan is to keep rapidly iterating on the design of the platform, to keep learning from feedback from our end users, being architects and manufacturers, and also expand the team and get more crazy driven people on the team who are also aligned and just so excited to solve this problem. Like if we don't, it'll stay exactly the same way it has been for the last 35 years and someone needs to do something about it. So yeah, that's the plan. And I'll actually invite to anyone who's listening right now, please go on acelabusa.com, sign up, play around with the platform and write me an email. If you like things that you see on the platform, if you don't like them, if you have any suggestions, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, and I'll put the link for Acelab and any other details you want to share in the show notes. So for anybody who wants to go, just like click on show notes and you can directly just jump onto what Vardhan's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be happy to just like learn from your inputs since we're not experts in this either. And we want to make sure that the tools that we're creating are actually generating real value for you in any way, shape, or form in your professional lives and add to you being able to go home for at least one day a week for dinner instead of staying in the office or the studio.
Oh, that's such a nice thing to say. Okay, so before I end, I just want to make a big demand. I know I'm not going to say if, when you launch in India, can I be your 101st user? I hope you have 1,000 before you go, but can I be like your first user in India?
Absolutely. We'll reserve that spot for you and that's our plan. Like right now, we're trying to hit the critical mass in this here in the US, and then we'll also expand to India very, very soon. So we're very excited about that.
Can't wait. Well, good luck, you guys, and I can't wait to see all the cool things you do. And you guys just like giving a TED talk in a few years on how you revolutionize the construction industry. See, I already have a title.
That sounds great, and we'll only be able to do that with the help of other architects who can join in, and so that we also feel a sense of community. Like right now, for architects, there isn't really a place where you can assemble together and take pride in the work that we do together, in spite of all the obstacles that we face on a day-to-day basis. So that would be great.
Well, can't wait. Thank you so much, Vardhan, for being here today. I hope we can all reconvene at some point in New York.
Yeah.
I can buy you both drinks.
Yes, that sounds awesome. We look forward to that.
Special thanks to Kahan Shah for the background score. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Architecture Off Center on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes are released every 2 weeks. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Arch Off Center. That is ARCHOFFCENTRE. Thanks for listening.